Good morning, everybody. My name is Joy Madeiros, and I've been with Oasis for a good long while, 20 years or so. I've been involved in building up Oasis as a group of organisations as we know it today. I'm delighted this morning to be able to introduce you to Josephine Okokon, who is the head teacher of St Martin in the Fields High School for Girls, which is in Tulse Hill in South London. And I'm very pleased to say that Josephine is a friend of Oasis. Josephine's had 15 years of experience in leadership, senior leadership in multicultural schools in Sutton and Greenwich and Croydon and Lambeth, all in South London. And one of the things that you might know about Josephine is that she was recently interviewed for the Guardian newspaper about the systemic racism in education. It's a great article, and I really encourage you to go and have a look at it. So welcome, Josephine. We're really delighted that you can be part of this morning, and we're looking forward to what you have to say. What I'm going to ask Josephine about is the discrimination that she's experienced in her journey towards leadership and towards headship. So we would love to learn to know about that, but most importantly, to learn the lessons that you think that you've experienced and that are going to be so valuable for our understanding of this situation. So Josephine, it'd be great if you could start with just telling us a little bit about yourself and then get on to those issues, those barriers that you've faced and the discrimination that we need to get over. So Josephine, over to you.
Oh, good morning, Joy. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I probably would like to start a little bit with my background, my family background. Both my parents came to work in this country. You could say they were part of the Windrush generation. My mum came here as a qualified midwife, but she continued to study here as a midwife. My father came to study as a doctor in tropical medicine, and they met each other in Birmingham, got married and what have you, and started a family. And I think my journey begins with them. My journey begins with their staunch expectations and dedication to education, and really instilling that within us, even when there's times when I'm just like, oh, I can't be bothered. And I'm like, no, you're going to finish, you've got to get on with it. And my mum was always there chasing behind me, making sure I completed everything that I needed to do. So I think from there, I never sort of totally decided I wanted to teach. What I wanted to do was have an impact on education. So I started off as a graduate working for Quango called School Curriculum and Assessment Authority. And they were the ones responsible for checking qualifications, and they produced SATs papers. So that's where I was working, do the administration around that. While I was there, I could see there was a bit of a glass ceiling regarding those who were making decisions about the future of education or the future of what was going on in schools, what they studied, that sort of thing. And we were part of a curriculum review. And that's when I realized, in order to make a decision, in order to influence nationally, what's going on, I had to go away and become a teacher and get some teaching experience. And so I did go into teaching, and I only really wanted to do it to just get some experience and come back again into policy. Actually, the moment I walked through a school door, I thought, this is it. This is my place. This is my calling. I absolutely love it. I knew then I could influence children, do the best I can to make a difference in their lives and their education. And as I started to get into teaching, particularly even, as an NQT or sort of, going through the early stages of teaching career, I started to notice differences in my path. I might have started at roughly the same time as other people, or other people would join afterwards, and they would be quite well encouraged and supported and heralded as being really great at what they're doing, what have you. And I knew that I wasn't like a failing teacher, if that makes sense. So I kept thinking, okay, what else can I be doing then? And and I just started over time to see that colleagues who are not from ethnic minority background, or I call global majority, which is a term created by Rosemary Campbell-Stevens, who has an OBE around the work she's done to improve leadership in schools. what I noticed is that if I didn't focus on the things that I wanted to do and push myself, I would be completely ignored. And I think that's when I started to realize, there is a difference in me being here, being in a school, of a different race. I noticed also that schools that I were working in, there may be, a wide range of students there, but not necessarily a wide range of leaders, people who were in charge. I started to sort of push my way forward and really determined to keep moving forward in my career and making, keeping at the back of my mind, I want to influence, I want to make a difference to the children, in London, in my care. And while I was doing that, I was starting to notice, particularly when I got into senior roles, that there were opportunities where I would apply for roles and wouldn't necessarily be considered for them. Or when I started to realize that I was going to be seen by governors, it'd be, thank you very much. Yeah, you were just this close. Or, I kept thinking, well, if I was that close and I can see that school could do with someone, a bit different, in leadership, why wasn't I, sort of considered and got the job? And some of the things that I picked up on were the fact that I started to filter for myself. So I would look at a range of applications, to be honest with you, probably when I was looking for deputy head jobs, I was looking for about 26 different job opportunities. And then I would filter myself from that and think, actually, are they likely to consider me? Are they likely to want to have a leader like me? Which is quite unhappy, it's quite sad in some respects, because you just think, I look at the school, I would choose schools where I felt there was quite a range of diversity, because I felt that would be more likely a place where I'd be able to make the most difference, but also more likely to be able to be seen as someone that could contribute to the school leadership. And then I just found that when I was sort of shortlisted, I'm often very been up against white males, and I found that the governing boards that I would be interviewed on are, very often were all white as well. And so I was starting to see a pattern here that although I was applying for jobs, although I was going for schools where I felt I would have a better chance of being employed, I was still not quite getting there.
So Josephine, it's a sad story, and an interesting one from an amazing amount of analysis that you did. So first of all, you didn't get the development, you didn't get the support, you didn't get the push. You had to work that out for yourself. You realized that you were behind other colleagues that had started at the same time as you, and you weren't getting the same kind of promotion. And then you went through, from what you're saying, actually you had to then kind of discern the school type that you could go to in order to stand some chance of being successful, probably in the application process, never mind in the actual recruitment process. So you had to become quite strategic in order to make your way. And so can you just tell us a little bit about that kind of strategy that you applied? You talked about looking at a range of 26 schools. What did that actually mean, and what were you looking for? What told you that this was a school that you could apply for and have a reasonable chance of success?
Thanks, Joy. Yes, so I would look at the schools, then what I would do, and then most people do this anyway, you research the school, you look at their website, you ask around anybody. I've got quite a wide network, I've always sort of managed to maintain good networks, and I'll say, oh, do you know this school? Have you heard anything about it? What's it like? But then I would also look at the senior team and try and get a flavour for what the senior team was like. I would look at Ofsted reports and get a sense of, you know, what the history's been like for the school. But I'd also then look at the governing body and think about, okay, you know, it's quite a wide range of people, what their backgrounds are like. And I'll start to get a sense of, actually, I'm not sure if they would consider someone like me, you know. And so I wouldn't then put in the application. I'd get a, you know, feel for it, look at the application, look at what they've been asking, and then I think, I'm not sure. I don't feel confident that they would even consider me.
So in that journey, then, it's true to say, isn't it? We can learn a lot from that, which is what you're saying is that the website tells you a lot, word of mouth tells you a lot, the senior team and its type tells you a lot. There's a story in the Ofsted report. It's worth getting to know who's on the governing body and finding out about their backgrounds too, because all of that is what you had to contend with. I suppose correspondingly, it's what we can learn from, because all of those aspects of a school contribute to whether or not it is multicultural and will welcome all types of leadership. I mean, what did you find when you started to look at that? How far did your search get narrowed down?
It got narrowed down quite significantly. So something like, I don't know, say 26 posts that I looked at. I probably ended up whittling that down to about 4 or 5. And then when it came to headship, I narrowed that down to about 4.
Wow. That's a sad situation. And then what happened? I mean, can you tell us some of your experience of actually going to those 4 schools? How did it work?
It was quite an interesting process. I obviously, you know, you prepare as best you can, and I think that's some of the other things that, in a way, perhaps was missing. So when I've noticed that people were being, you know, seen and encouraged, and, you know, perhaps taken under their wing, for example, you know, to apply to jobs, it's very much another skill. You know, you have to learn the skill of writing an application to make sure you're fitting the criteria. And it's not that you can't fit the criteria. You wouldn't apply for the job if you didn't feel you could. It's about how you show that you're fitting the criteria. And so you do that. Then you would actually apply for the job. You get shortlisted. I remember one distinct moment where I was shortlisted for a deputy role, actually, and I turned up and I was the only Black female shortlisted. There were no other females, and I just thought, either I'm in for a hell of a chance or no chance whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it started to make me think about, is this about perception? Is it about people thinking they know what a head teacher looks like? Yeah. And if that's the case, then I would never fit that model. And I think, you know, I don't know if you want me to start going on to some of the lessons learned.
It'd be great. Yeah, it'd be fantastic to hear from you, because learning the skill and trying to work out what the perception should be is not where we're going here, is it? Your advice would be something quite different. So yes, it'd be great to hear what you've got to say on this.
Yes, so for me, I think I attended a National Governing Association panel last summer, I think it was, where we were, the drive was to increase the number of governors from diverse backgrounds. That was the drive. And so I was telling them very similar story, really, so that they understood that the need for a diverse body, but more than that, because you don't want to just pluck people out of the air or what have you. You want to be able to make sure you've got a governing body that is in tune with what the school needs and what the school wants. But what I suppose the whole purpose behind that conference or panel was to think deliberately about diverse recruitment. So it doesn't mean that you only can be recruiting people from diverse backgrounds if the governing body is diverse. It helps, and of course that's the ideal, but you might not always be able to do that, which is fine. So therefore it's about a commitment from the governing body to want to recruit diversely. And when I say diversely, I don't just mean, you know, colour and culture. I'm talking about different ways of thinking. I'm thinking about what other contributions people can make instead of having a certain type or set way of thinking what a head looks like or would be. One comment I think I would just pass on is that sometimes when you're shortlisting, and I've been part of a panel like this, where you're shortlisting and certain people are looking for certain things. So for example, they may be looking for people from a certain type of university. That's great. I'm sure people from certain types of universities will be great leaders, but it doesn't preclude other people from different universities not being great leaders. So sometimes there's discrimination within discrimination. It's not intended. It's just thinking, oh, we want someone who we consider to be, high caliber or, academic or whatever it is that they think they're looking for, which is great. But ultimately, you want the best person who can do the job. And yes, it's great that they've come from a particular background, they've had a particular education, but not everyone from diverse backgrounds who can do the job may have had that privilege, if you like. Some people from diverse backgrounds may deliberately stay closer to home because they're helping to support the family, for example, or maybe their cultural tradition or religion that they're not to go too far from the home or what have you. So that's something that you might end up precluding people who just is able to do the job, but just have a slightly different start in life, if you like. So I think that's crucial for me, that making sure that the governing body is diverse ideally, but is committed to recruiting diversely.
And the commitment that you're looking for, as I understand it, just such wise words, it's not about a certain type. You're not looking for a certain type of person. What you're looking for is someone who can actually do the job, to be engaged with that person, the skills that they bring, the experience that they bring, and not what kind of university they've come from, or even wherever they live, or whatever they've done in terms of traveling, whatever else. What you're really trying to get us to think about is that the commitment is to the person sitting in front of you and engaging with their skills and their experience and thinking about how they match the criteria of the job. That's what we need to focus on. That's what we need to change our understanding towards. That's what we need to make sure that our policies and our procedures lead towards, rather than us getting taken away with a certain type of leadership that we've already got in the school and trying to fit in with that. Great words of wisdom. Thank you very much, Josephine. Thank you for telling us that. No doubt some very painful moments for you on the road to headship. So fantastic that you're in the place that you're in, but appalling really that only 7% of our head teachers in state schools are of African, Caribbean, Asian heritage. It's crucial that we've had the opportunity to listen to you, but even more crucially that we learn and apply the lessons that you've been talking to us about this morning. So Josephine, thank you very much for the time that you spent with us today. I'm going to try and just close. No, you're very welcome, and we really appreciate you being part of us. I'd like to just now close off this session really with one further point, and I think it's a point that Josephine and I have talked about. And I'm going to raise a note of caution. I hope a very healthy and helpful note of caution at this stage, and that's this: that the changes that Josephine's been talking about obviously are crucial, but if we simply just engage with change for the sake of change, so if we just add on change to the existing kind of approach to recruitment and advertising that we've got, if we undertake change just for its sake, then that kind of change will lack authenticity and integrity, and people will see through it, and it won't last for very long. Why do I think this? I think that the danger with any change that's simply learned rather than believed in, actually won't, as I say, last for very long. So what I'm saying is that those changes really need to start with a mindset shift in ourselves. First of all, we have to start facing inwards, if you like, before we face outwards. In fact, any act of inclusion always starts with ourselves. Otherwise, it can be dangerously patronizing. Discovering me and what I truly believe and what I think about life and what I know about myself is always the gateway to be able to engage about those things with another person. So genuine connection with another person is otherwise really impossible. And it's only when we've done that kind of work that we'll be in the place that Josephine's talking about, where we can genuinely look to the other person, be curious and engaged in the skills and the experience that they're bringing, what they can contribute to the school that we're in, who they are, as opposed to whether that person is going to fit in with me or with the existing culture and style of leadership in the school. So starting with ourselves is always, I think, the route to true inclusion. And it's only at that point then that we can begin to work seriously and take seriously and implement seriously the policies and procedures that Josephine's talking about in terms of governance, in terms of the way in which we go about presenting ourselves, in terms of the website, in terms of the leadership that we have in our schools, all the things that Josephine's talking about. It's only when we've engaged with ourselves and committed to that change that she's talking about that we can ensure that the advertising and the recruitment that we're then going to go about will really bring about a truly diverse leadership team. So thank you for those lessons. Thank you everyone for listening, and I'll hand you back to our leader.